Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 4 of Devtoberfest. This session is about improving the performance of UI5 applications. And I'm joined today by Peter Musig, who's the chief architect of UI5. Very, very glad to have you on board, Peter.
And thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. And this session came about because a few months back, I hosted a session regarding UI5 and comparing it to UI5 web components for React. And in the Q&A, someone asked about how the performance of the UI5 application was compared to the UI5 web components application that was built in React. And I didn't really have an answer back then, but I contacted Peter and we thought, okay, we investigated a little and tried a few things out. And I think we have some, interesting results to share. So that's why we're doing this session today. And the baseline application that we'll be using for this session is the same app that we had, a few months back in the comparison session. So I will take the Bookshop app. Some of you might know that already. And I will start with fine-tuning it a little and improving its performance. And then Peter is going to comment on that. And in the end, he's going to do the real magic and getting it in the green numbers performance-wise. So we'll see how that goes.
We'll try how good the magic is.
Yeah, we'll see. No, I'm confident. All right, I'll start sharing my screen. And you should see the screen. I have up here the repository where we're going to store all of that. So in the UI5 exercises code gem repo, which is where the Bookshop app is, we created a new branch called Performance Devtoberfest. And in here, we have some more info on that and also the instructions. So that's what I'll be working off today. Let me get that out of the way. And this is VS Code right here. So this is the code for the app, and inside the Bookshop folder we have the app, and we can start this by running npm run dev, and that gives us the Bookshop app. And I already have the Lighthouse report open here, so let's run the first baseline test. And this application is not built, there's no optimized build for this. It's just running off the CDS server. So we can actually see that. Oh,
4004.
Yeah. So we can see that here. We're just using the CAP server where the HTML files are served under web applications, and that's where we get it from. And let's see what we get. So we get around 40, which is not optimal, obviously.
Yeah. And this is a result of that really this application is not being built. It's not optimized for that scenario. Although UI5 is being loaded from the CDN, I think it's like that. Or we can see that in the network trace also.
Yeah, it's from the CDN.
Yeah, I need to. Yeah, and even more, we have some 404. So it tries to load the preload. You see that, yeah. And it doesn't find it. We have languages which are not available and try to look up. So these 404s also create negative impact on the performance. And I think, in my opinion, the only way to get around that is really now that we get started to add the tooling, the UI5 tooling under the application. And I think that's what we should do now, Nico.
Exactly. So I'll create a new directory, which we call performance web app, and obviously in there let me kill that. So we want to
call it perf web app. It's a bit shorter. I would recommend.
Oh,
rename F2.
Yeah.
Or enter. Yeah. Much better. We save some words or some characters.
All right, so we're in here now, and let's initialize a new npm project or Node.js project. So here we are, and now we can install the UI5 tooling and save this to
as dev dependency. Yeah,
exactly.
And then we copy paste the content from the other app into the web app folder of this one.
Exactly. So I'll grab all the content and say copy. Oh, and we need a new folder here because we want
the tooling expects
the default structure. Yeah. And in there we paste. You can't see that on my screen, but I'm hitting paste. And now we can say UI5 init because now we have the default structure and now we want the UI5 YAML.
Exactly.
So now we
knows
have
depending on just for all, it knows depending on the folder that there is a web app folder that this is a type of application, and that's at the end then the indicator for it to create this YAML like that. If there would be a source folder, it would derive that this is a library. So just for your knowledge.
Okay, and then now we can add all the libraries that we need. So we're going to use OpenUI5, SAP UI Core, SAP so on, and also the theme. So that should add all of those here. Perfect.
Just for all, this UI5 use command, there you can say OpenUI5 or SAP UI5, and latest means it selects the highest version available. And the UI5 add command, with that you add additional libraries, the normal UI libraries or the theme libraries to this project, and that's how it works. It's a convenient way of adding dependencies to the UI5 project.
Exactly. So and now we can say UI5 serve, and that should serve the application on the local host. And that's the wrong browser window. Just 1 second. But obviously, oh, that was wrong. But obviously, we don't see any data because we don't have any connection to the CAP server that we killed a few minutes ago. So just to make sure that our performance measurements are not dependent on our backend connectivity, we're going to hook into our component, and on the init method of the component, we're going to put the data, set the data as a model.
This also avoids at the end, when we do now the performance measurements, that we also measure the backend performance with that. So
exactly,
we should really focus on the client-side performance for this session.
So we now have our component, and we set a new JSON model here, line 15.
Maybe for everyone, Nico, we can also show how we grabbed that. So we took that from the local host, from the CDS app. Yeah,
which I killed. So
okay, yeah, then don't mind. But at the end, that's the way how you can do that. You can then grab it from the response from the CAP server, and then put it in a JSON model. That's the easy way now how to get rid of this connection. So we have now everything in place here and just measure the client-side performance.
Exactly. So now we have our data in here, and we can run it with UI5 serve. And now we can do a...
Don't measure the performance now.
I mean, we're...
okay, let's show it. That everyone knows, because it's good that you are aware of that. Because some people really start the app in that mode, and then they do a performance measurement. But just show it, and then we go ahead.
Yeah, because if we measure the performance now, obviously that's like full dev mode, and we're still using the CDN, so it could be even worse. But obviously the build is not. We actually have no build in the application. It's not well at all. So you can see we didn't do anything yet
as
far as performance goes. Yeah. And now because we now set up the project so that we can actually build it. So let's do that now. So we can now run UI5 build, and we want to build everything. So including all the libraries.
It is also important to know, if you just run UI5 build, it will just run the build of the local application. And if you would serve then the application from your dist folder, which is being generated, it will not include the UI5 resources there. If you rely, like we do right now, on the CDN, where you grab the UI5 runtime resources from, this is no problem. But if you want to really run and deploy this as a standalone application, which also refers to the UI5 resources from there, you need to build the UI5 all, and then you can deploy the whole application with the UI5 runtime resources to your server, and you are then completely independent.
Exactly. So let's just wait for this to finish. Obviously, because this is a longer process and it takes some time.
You should switch to a M1.
I should. Yeah, you're right.
It's much better.
Yes. Yeah, I can't wait when that day comes.
Last year it came, it came one day before the UI5 con, and then I had to wait 2 days until I got started with my MacBook. I was really happy at the weekend and to play around with the new performance. It's incredible.
Yeah, but you don't want to make that switch and do your live demo on a new machine, so that's why you waited, I guess. All right, so I can, in a parallel process, I can already install Surf with this, which is an npm packet. Oh no, this one's ready too. Okay, can we use? Can use this one?
We can just close this one again. Yeah.
Because now we have a dist folder here, right? This is our build result, and in order to be able to serve that, we can use the surf package. And now in our, just for convenience reasons, in our package.json, let's create a new script so we don't have to say surf dist all the time. And I also haven't installed surf globally.
Yeah, even more. If you didn't install it globally, you need to call npx surf dist always.
Yeah, exactly. So now we have it in here, and now I can just say npm run start dist. And here we go. Wrong browser window again. 1 second. All right, so let's see what we got now. Oh, and by the way, I'm always doing the performance measurements in a private window because you don't want any extensions or anything that you have installed in your browser to interfere with the application, which might slow it down. So
I guess no change.
I guess no change too, but we have set up our application so that we can, improve.
Yeah, now it's coming from the dist folder. Yeah, okay, a little bit deproof, but I think that's normal in the way. So from CDN, it could be one time a little bit better, one time a little bit worse. But I think we should now go ahead because with the CDN, we reach a dedicated limit also with the library preloads, loading it from there. So if we really want to make a standalone application performing better, we should really go and go in the direction of a self-contained build.
Exactly. So that's why we're going to run npm build self-contained. And if I wouldn't,
before we do that, I think we should also show one thing, Nico. If you go to the index HTML of your application, I would really show also the dev mode. So if you switch now to resources, SAP UI4JS, for example, here, because also this is one of the things when people start with one or the other template and it's really a self-contained local development environment, it also means that the UI5 development mode is being started for the runtime. And then a lot of resources are loaded individually. So if you can run this maybe in the UI5 serve, that we can really show that to everyone. So the performance is even worse than this 40. But the reason for that is that a lot of single requests will go out against your local server. And they are also, depending on the way how you configure the UI5, be synchronous or asynchronous. And this also blocks or harms the performance.
Yeah, obviously that should be the worst performance we get today.
Yeah, just that everyone sees that's full dev mode, and that's absolutely normal in this case. So this is, and if you open the network, then we can really see what's happening here. So there are, if you scroll up, 399 requests, nearly 400. Are loaded here, and they are coming then individually from the server, which by default runs in the HTTP 1.1 mode. So this is, I think, the worst case scenario. And if something like this is on your side, that's always, something where you should remind, okay, this is not the real runtime performance of that. But as we said, we want to go ahead, self-contained build.
So, UI6, that happens to me so often. UI6 or UI4. UI5 build. Yeah, I don't know why. It's a common typo I do.
The UI5 is no version number, so it's just
I know.
you know where the name comes from.
Yeah, from HTML5.
Yeah.
All right. So UI5 build self-contained, and I've done the all build before, so that's good for now.
Yeah. So this now creates a special bundle, but we can also, before we show the self-contained build, we can also show one more thing. But it happened now. If you start again the dist, just run UI5 build again without anything. Just want to show one thing as well, and then surf from dist. Then we also see one thing, that the preload should now be generated for the application. So if you reload and show the network trace, what's happening is, if you scroll a bit up, can you improve the size a bit or increase? Yeah, now you see in the 6th row below. So this is the library preload. This is one thing, but here the component preload is being loaded, and this is now also a result of the build which we have. So if you run normally the application or develop the application on the CAP server without having the build, you don't get this component preload here, and therefore you need the UI5 tooling to generate this. So at least this is also one recommendation when you have applications which include multiple resources, that you also take care that you run the preload generation for this component, and then also the serve is much more efficient than loading a lot of single resources. In the case of this very simple CAP application, it means if you look, for example, in the response inside, you see also what is included. Can you click on this response tab, please, Nico? Exactly. So there are a few resources included: the component.js, the app controller, the manifest.json, the app view. So typically it would be around having 3 additional requests besides one request you have here, which would be the result if you don't have a preload in the simple case. But if you have big applications having, let's say, 50, 100 resources included, this is a much more efficient way than the single request. Just to give you this background information as well.
Yeah, that's good.
But I think now self-contained.
Exactly. So
we need to run it once again.
Yep, to replace what we have.
Yeah, the self-contained build also changes the source attribute in the index HTML.
Yeah, we can see that here.
It's redirecting to, or it's changing it to SAP UI custom, and this is the bundle which the self-contained build creates. It includes all the required resources.
Right. So now npm run start dist. All right, but now we should see some improvement. Oh no, not performance, but lighthouse. Okay, 50. So we're in the medium range now. We're improving, but we're far from done yet, so don't worry. But in the network trace, or actually in the console too, we can still see we get a lot of 404s not found, and in the network trace too. So that, as Peter said in the beginning, obviously slows down the application as well. So we should take care of removing those.
And there is also one thing: if you go back to the network and you check for the 4 on the console, you also see it in the console. There is not only the language files, the I18N files, which are problematic. We still have the requests going to the backend.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to avoid that. We need to remove something in the manifest. And I think nevertheless we will go there.
Yeah. So that's the data source that we previously used to get the book data from the backend, from the CAP backend. So I'm just gonna kill all that.
You can also keep it if you want.
Yeah,
it's more important below in the models that we remove this one here. Yeah,
I can just put a 1 here, so the request will never go anywhere.
And you should say that it's at least type JSON, because we want that this model is being created, because we just said, yeah, type and JSON. Yeah, you get also recommendation.
And for the IHN part, we're gonna introduce some supported logos, like just specify what we're gonna have, and also fallback. And I have some one closing bracket too much. Okay, here we go. And let's save that. And obviously we specified that we have EN and DE as languages. And I know that I have to rename a file here to match that. So the
IHN.
Yeah, I'll just do this now. And I believe that should eliminate all our 404. So there's no translation files that won't be found. And we have removed the data source, or
maintaining the manifest JSON, the supported locales or languages is really a good practice, because with that you can ensure that for your application UI5 runtime doesn't load the current language, which is maybe set by the browser itself. And you don't typically have ENGB or whatever regional-like translation. It's most often the language itself. And then this helps to avoid this 404 request. So that's really something you should also take a look into.
Yeah, and I just remembered one thing that you told me, Peter. I should remove this emoji here if it's not absolutely necessary.
Maybe we can show that also what happens here if we keep it.
Oh, okay, then we'll just keep it here. All right. So I have to run another build. Oh, yep. And now we get the...
Just go back into the manifest. So the manifest model configuration has a problem with a type. And the issue here is...
doesn't have to be like the SAP/model or something. You know what? Let's just
it's not SAP/model. But if you kick it out, then let's do it different. I think just kick it out for the moment, and we create the model in the component.js. If we don't, let's check, because okay, we nevertheless do it. So we can
do it anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so now we get no errors, which is good. And the application felt fast too. So let's see if it is faster. Should be.
So the type should be, I forgot that it's not JSON. That's the way how you specify it in the data sources. Mm-hmm. In the model, you need to say type equals a colon and then sap.ui.model.json.json model. So the name, the module name.
Yeah. Okay. But now we improve the performance a little bit. But as I said, we wanted to check the emoji thing and the network trace, right?
Yeah, there are a few more things also. So we also see that additional resources are still loaded. So we have a custom build, but the Gregorian JS is loaded and the component support is loaded. These are two modules which are not detected automatically by the self-contained build, since the Gregorian is loaded depending on your calendar settings. And it knows that in the English language, it uses by default the Gregorian calendar. And this information comes from this CLDR data we have in the behind. So if you want to include it in the custom build, we need to have a dependency to that. So we can add a void dependency to the component.js. And the same thing is with the component support. Because it's a configuration we have in the index HTML to start a component support, to load finally, or to use the component support to create a component, this declarative component initialization. If you check in the index HTML, we can briefly show that. Here in the on-init, we just call module. This is the module to load SAP UI core component support. And if you look a little bit down, there you just specify this div element with the attribute data SAP UI component, and this is checked by the component support to identify which components to be loaded and to be placed here inside these placeholder elements later on. So these elements are used as the UI area for these components. And that's how it works. And as this is not in JavaScript, the self-contained build doesn't detect that. And then it's a good practice to add this to your component.js as a void dependency like this here. That's enough. And then the UI5 build can find it and can pick it up in the bundle.
So we'll refresh here.
So now they are gone.
They're gone,
requests. Yep. So now we see one more thing. If you go look a little bit down, the component.js is loaded. That's strange in the component preload. This shouldn't be the case in when you do a self-contained build. So there needs to be, or there is something wrong. Can you open the component preload.js briefly? So it's CodeGem, but we called the namespace SAP CodeGem. So there's a typo somewhere. I suggest it's, or I think it's in the manifest.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not called SAP.CodeGem. So that's the name. So in case of these typos, and then a component preload takes place or component.js, this looks suspicious. So then you should really also check your metadata again and then rerun the build. And now, keep fingers crossed, we have some more or some less requests.
Yeah.
Next time we use the watch mode. That's easier. Then we don't need to just go to the network, please, to check that everything is good.
Of course, yeah.
So here we see custom message bundles. That's the message bundle for the framework. Here we can also use, if we know that it's only English used, then also reduce that. But here in this case, it's not a problem since the framework knows that these language files are here and it loads that. So if we go a bit down, that was one thing Nico mentioned. So having this hand in the application, this waving hand here, leads to load some additional WOF files, some additional resources, this full WOF files, because it's this is part of the extended character set. And if we want to get rid of two more requests here, we can just remove this nice looking hand, but it causes some additional requests to some font files.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
It's not necessary, but they are not in the critical path, the font files. So that's also one thing which is okay. So now we should not see the full. So we have now really reduced it to the minimum possible. So now let's measure.
Let's measure. Should see some improvement again.
$60. Not bad.
There we go. That's not bad.
Yeah, and but we can do more.
We can do more. With that, I'll hand it over to you because now comes the real magic.
Okay, let me share my screen now, and I take over the screen sharing. So you have to say whether you can see it good.
Yes.
Or should I increase the font size?
Maybe one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. Okay. Perfect.
Good. So I took your application already, and as I had a little bit of preparation time now, I added a few things to the application because what we now have done is we did everything which comes or which is possible with the UI5 tooling by not doing, let's say, a lot of magic around that. One thing which is, for example, or one thing you can improve for sure is the perceived performance of the application. So in UI5, you typically also, or the application waits until the resources have been loaded and then finally renders when also the data is being there. This leads to, in some cases, a little bit delay until the application is appearing, and many other applications have then also a splash screen or something in the beginning which is rendered, like a little preview of the app or whatever. And what we want to do now is to also apply a concept on the application with to use a splash screen to come to a better perceived performance. In order to do so, I created an index boot file, and this index boot file is looking more or less exactly the same like this index.js, but I changed a little bit this script tag here. And I changed it in a way that the script tag doesn't contain not any information anymore, just the ID, and uses this custom script because this is what we at the end want to do. And you also may notice that I use the defer here to make it asynchronous, non-blocking here. It's not really async, but it's ensuring that the order is being kept here. But I want to not let the browser wait until these files have been loaded, processed, and passed and processed. And I also add one thing. I add a style sheet in the beginning, which should bring up already some CSS to the page, apply it so that the page looks already that something is being displayed. And in the body class, I add a class loading to that. And with the loading, I want to do something. Let's take a look into this style CSS. So here in the style CSS, I apply a little thing, so the height and width. But then in the body loading, I do one more thing. So I set a background, or I prepare for a background image. And I make this body loading hidden when something is being rendered inside that element. But I think this is not really necessary. We can even get rid of that. But the most interesting part is now it's also that I want to make one thing. I want to display a UI5 logo, either black or white, depending on which color scheme is being disabled, and the background also should then be the contrast. So for the white logo, the black background, and for the black logo, the white background. And I use the SVG for this UI5 logo there. And now let's take a look in the boot.js, because this is now the script which runs before the UI5 is being loaded. And there, I configure UI5. I use the window SAP UI config. This is the config object. And I put just all the information I had before in this bootstrap script tag here, like compat version edge. I want to run the loading async. I want to keep English as language. I want to have the resource roots configuration is being in here. And on init should call the component support. Like we have had it already before. And in the theme, we now do a detection on which media or which color scheme is currently running. So I have a dark mode. So I want to use them and see, in this case, SAP Horizon Dark. And if it's not a dark mode, then I want to have the SAP Horizon theme. And if it doesn't work, so in some cases, but this should not be for all modern browsers, then it falls back to the Horizon theme. And basically, that's all. So the rest is just standard again. And when I do that, so I started my dev server already. So I run the UI5 build self-contained, and everything is copied into the dist folder. You have seen that on Nico's side already. And this is now the app. So it's loading, but we have the index HTML, which is the same like Nico showed, but I want to show now the index boot. And this is now the one which is aware also of the color scheme, so of the dark mode of my machine. You see maybe in the sharing, I don't know whether it's visible, Nico, you have to say.
No, it is. Yeah, you can see it. It's good.
The Phoenix is briefly coming in, and the UI5 logo, and then the application is being rendered. So, and when I reduce the network size a little bit, I hope it comes a little bit more visible, just to do it once more. So it's here. So while loading, this is being displayed immediately. And once done, the application is then finally being rendered. So maybe I can also speed up this a bit. So, and then the application is rendered, and that's it. So let's measure the performance now with Lighthouse, because Lighthouse also considers the perceived performance, and let's see what comes out. $72. Look, not bad.
Not bad.
Even a bit more. So what we see here now is let's say the maximum we can get out of the UI5 as it works today. But this is not the end where we want to go to with UI5. And some of you may have listened to one or the other UI5 con in the past, and you know that we are working on the bootstrap of UI5 to improve the bootstrapping performance. So our goal is to make it possible to earlier interact with the DOM, also with the UI5 APIs, to do immediately also display maybe something like these loading indications, which we applied here manually with this concept. And in addition, we also want to ensure that the UI5 framework is growing as it goes. So this means that if you need only data binding and the control framework, it should not load the components handling for message managing and stuff like that, or it should not have the XML view then being loaded. It should just include these modules which are really, really needed. Because if we look into the network trace of this custom bundle, then we see already that this custom bundle is it's around 2 megabyte. Maybe the other perspective is a bit better. So it's 2.1 megabyte here. You can also increase that a little bit and reduce the size here. And when we want to reach at the end a real better performance, it's about reducing requests. It's about reducing the size of individual requests. And therefore, the UI5 framework need to be adopted. And this happens right now in the team. They are really working hard on that. To get that done, that we come to a better custom bundle, because you can also see that in the coverage. If we do a reload here, then there is enough potential in the resources. I should have used the node throttling, then we see it immediately. So half of this content which is being loaded in the custom JS can be omitted. And this is exactly what we are working on. And therefore, I provided also a little sneak preview for you here to see where the journey is heading to. And this is now something coming directly from the blacksmith of UI5. So we prepared really a nice example for that, that you can really see where an application performance can go to. Before I show you the application, I just want to say it's the same application, but now it's re-implemented in a slight different way. It's using here also the same mechanism. I have the style, I have the boot.js. So this is the preview coming from or having this Phoenix splash coming up in the beginning and configuring UI5. And here, this is the self-contained bundle, but I renamed it to Bookshop in this case. And here in the on-init, I don't use the components for that. I just use a UI5 module, which I require. And this UI5 module is the application module. It has this new core, the new modular core, which I have here running as a POC. And inside the application, I use a normal JSON model. I use web components, which are re-enabled in UI5 because they are at the moment the better choice for this performance application here. I want to show, because the resources they need, they are less. We also rework our existing libraries to make them slimmer and have concepts to load them with less resources. But this is also something which I can't do in this quick show, and therefore I concentrated here on the best thing I have at hand to show you how ultimately the performance can look like. And then I created the application in a classic way. So just creating the control tree. Here, I needed a text control because the web components don't have a text control available. So I created my own one, just using a span. And in the init, I create the application. Here I have the panel, and inside the panel, you also see hello dev. So it looks already similar like the application. In the panel, we have an input for the search. So this is a search field. Here, the input logic it's the same logic as we have in the other application. And the table control here below is defining the table columns, and we bind the rows against the value. This is from the data, and the cell content, these text elements, they are bound against the properties. So they are using also data binding. And here you can see we use the JSON model, the same model like Nico had in the component shares. And then the whole thing is placed into the DOM. So I have started the server already, and I hope that everything works fine. So this is already reloading pretty fast, so you don't see a splash. This is already a good indicator. And when you look into that, you see also network trace that it loads only 1.2 megabyte. So this is half the size we had before. And there is also, the amount of requests is reduced to the absolute minimum here. And UI5 web components have also a speciality that they transport their CSS also as JavaScript. So they can embed that also in the bundle. And then they use concepts like constructible style sheet to apply it to the DOM, but it's then the internals of that. So this makes it a little bit more efficient from a packaging perspective, that we can include it in the web components. They also include the CSS they really need for these components, as they know this immediately, and we don't have this library CSSs then available. So now, I think you are pretty interested already where we can come to. This is now the expected performance of a UI5 application in future.
Drum roll, here we go.
94. Okay, I see there is still one yellow. Sometimes lighthouse is yellow figure. Sometimes lighthouse is not completely accurate, also when you have screen sharing turned on. So a little bit better. Let's give it a second try, and drum roll.
Oh, it's still very good. It's green.
Yeah, we need
good.
200 there, then it's green, I remember. So 200 was the figure. So last try. Otherwise, yeah, look.
There we go.
3 times and you get it. So, but this is really an outlook in that performance, what we want to achieve with the framework. And this is absolutely comparable with other existing frameworks out there. And this is not far away. We need to, as I said, rework. Parts are already there. You saw a preview of that, what's happening and where we are going to. And I really expect that in the upcoming year, you will have this available also for your applications.
Awesome. I can't wait for that.
Yeah. And this is also one thing which then hopefully is also bring a little bit more stress reduction, because we have very often challenged, and performance is always a topic. And I think it's really a signal outside that we also work on our internals to improve it, to keep also track with the things happening and apply web standards and keep on that and benefit from them. And with that, hopefully, finally, you all and we all benefit from that, what's going on here. Good.
For sure.
Did I want to show something more? I forgot.
I think you wanted to show that this is an actual UI5 application, like that you can interact with the with his
Exactly.
SAP UI core object. Yeah.
So this was the old application you had, and you implemented also the filtering. So this is working. Thank you. That's, I think, really essential. So it's not a fake. It's not static HTML which is being rendered. So you see also here the logging from UI5 is happening here when starting the application, and you can also type in the filter, and it's updating here. We can also check inside that these are UI5 internals. So they are, you see that there are the shadow roots, that's from the UI5 web components, but let's go to the UI5 input. So this is now really a UI5 web component wrapped as a UI5 control being integrated into the Open UI5 SAP UI5 programming model that you can use data binding for that. And now if I access it, so it has the ID search. Let's use this command here by ID and search. You see, this is now also providing you all the internals from a UI5 control. So this search is the UI5 control, and I can use now the set value to update the text. Hello, Devtoberfest. So, and it's working, it's updating. So it's not updating the filter because that's something I missed, that also this change event is listened to. But you see, it's really, really fully functional UI5. It's the control framework plus data binding, but reduced to really the absolute minimum resources being needed for this scenario here. And this is really that what you will get out of that when you load the application here. And with that, I think that's what I wanted to show. Stay patient, yeah, really looking forward that this comes out and we all can benefit from that.
Me too. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll put all the links that you need in the description and also in the chat. And thanks, Peter, for joining me today and teaching us all how we can improve the performance.
It was really a pleasure.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.